Hello, in this video we're looking at issue 24 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine, where we'll be learning some new rules on how to conduct our battles on the tabletop. Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're looking at issue 24 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium today. In this issue we've got two new paints, a pot of Rakarth Flesh base paint and a pot of Null Oil Shade paint. Obviously we'll be using those on our miniatures, but if you want to look at the battle for this issue, you can skip ahead using the time code in the description or using the chapter bars. Looking into the issue first, however, first up we have a name generator for the weapons and war gear of the Mechanicus. As we've learned before, the Mechanicus approach technology from a sort of religious and spiritual angle, so obviously they would treat their war gear and weapons with great care and bestow special names on them. So you have some here for ranged and melee weapons, and on the previous page was war gear. And then name generators here for the Necrons, various grudges and degradations they either had or gained while they were in stasis. So there's ones for characters and heroes, and ones for units themselves. And then some background on the Tyranids. This is another one of the Xenos races in this setting. Aliens in every sense of the word, who came from beyond the edge of the galaxy and roam around in huge, what are called hive fleets, so where they sort of descend on worlds and consume everything living, and then once the planet has been consumed they leave and head to the next one. See some of the various organisms they have, so these little tiny rippers here, up to their huge trigon there, and also they actually have organic fleet ships that roam through space. Now adding some new paints to our Space Marines, so Rakarth Flesh is being used for the Purity Seal parchment, and also on the Lieutenant's tabard thing he has, shading that with Agrax Earthshade and then using the non-oil all over the mechanical parts and silver, so things like the Sergeant's bionic arm and the pistol parts, the vents, chainsaw teeth and that sort of thing. And then doing a recess shade, so just shading into the recesses of the Librarian's robe and then neatening it back up with Mechanicus Standard Grey. So there's not too much to go through there, and now we've got a fair amount of new rules to look into. I'll hand you over to Will.
So in order to play this issue's game, we need to learn about objectives. Obviously we've been given some objective markers with the very first issue, and we've used them once or twice, but this is more general rules for using objectives, which are usually represent locations of importance on the battlefield that need to be controlled, and usually by a 40mm diameter token, like the ones we were given. They'll be a bit more over the page, but it does say when measuring to objectives, measure to the closest part of the objective marker, and it also mentions progressive and end game objectives. This is to do with when those objectives are relevant either during the game, which is progressive, or only at the end of the game, which would be end game ones. That should always be fairly obvious from the mission description that you're playing. And then we have a bit about victory points, which is a way of working out who wins a game. It's effectively just a score that you get for doing certain things, controlling objectives, or doing other actions. As it says, they do give you some counters to use with this issue, or you can record them on a piece of paper or whatever, as long as it's clear to both players how many victory points each side has. Again, that will be used in this game, so we'll see how that works. And over the page it explains how you control an objective. It's the player who has the most models within 3 inches of any part of that objective. So in this picture you can see that the Necrons have 3 models and the Space Marines only have 2. So they control the objective at this point in time. And for scoring victory points, so in this example here, scoring victory points for controlling objectives, and these are recorded at that time, and shows here the players using a piece of paper and writing down how many victory points they've got. There are various ways to keep track of it. We'll see our method when we get to the game. And then we learn a little bit about missions. As you might expect, when you play a game, you select a mission to play, and this will tell you how to play the game and how it's scored and how to win it, essentially. Mission description will usually include a set of instructions, which follows some steps which you do to prepare your armies and play the game, and it usually includes these steps, as it says. So we've got muster armies, read the mission briefing, create the battlefield, and deploy, and so on, and then eventually determine the victor. It all looks quite formal, but it's really a very straightforward process. It's just how you play a game, really. And then some more about objective markers. This is actually an extract from the full rules, so it explains what we've just seen on the previous pages, how to control objectives, and also mentions a few more technical things to do with aircraft and fortifications. And there's also a mention of a rule called Objective Secured, which is where some units that have this ability will trump others that control objectives. I won't go over that because that hasn't been introduced with any of the units we've got so far in the magazine, but it will probably come up eventually. We'll see that at some point in the future, I imagine. Then we have something called the Scout Mission Pack, which is a collection of missions that we'll be fighting over the next few issues, focusing on the conflict on the moon of Cephos. There's a bit more background on the moon here. It's a fortress moon in the Ramesses system, the third moon of the gas giant Gliantha. There's a picture of the moon and a bit of information on the forces fighting over it. And here are the rules for the Scout mission pack. So all of the missions in the mission pack share this battle sequence effectively. So we start off by mustering armies, and then we have a mission briefing, create the battlefield, then we deploy our armies, and the mission will tell you exactly how to do that, and then determine the first turn again, following the mission rules. Then step 6 is begin the battle, step 7 is ending the battle, and the battle happens in between there, and then step 8 is determine who won the game. And the first of the scout missions is called cipher-decoding. So as a bit of background, the Romanian 45th Lancers, regiment of the Astra Militarum, have been destroyed and their decoding machine has been lost. And if the Necrons manage to get hold of it, they might be able to decrypt Imperial communications. So the Space Marines have been sent to their last known location to try and recover the device. The Necron forces are led by a Royal Warden, and they've observed the Space Marines looking for something and obviously decided that this isn't something important that they should get their hands on as well. Because the Space Marines are actually trying to recover the cipher device, led by Primaris Librarian. So here is the scout mission, secure the cipher. It includes information that relates to some of the steps we saw on the previous page, so the mission briefing is what we're trying to achieve, narrative. The forces in play are used for muster armies, so we've got, for the Necron side, 10 Necron warriors, 3 Scarab Swarms and the Royal Warden, and the Ultramarines, we have a Librarian in Phobos armour technically, and 3 aggressors. Then for our create battlefield step, it says lay your battle out and place an objective right in the centre. It also lists the dimensions of the battlefield, 30 by 22 inches, which is the size of our battle map. There's no terrain, but beginning with the Necron player, both players alternate deploying their units wholly within the respective deployment zones, which are 3 inches on from the short edges in this game. So we'll show that on camera just so you can see what that means in practice in a moment. Then we have the mission objectives, which award victory points, and then whoever has the most victory points at the end of the battle is victorious. So securing the cipher is a progressive objective, which means that at the end of each player's turn, the player whose turn it is scores a victory point if they control the objective, and the battle lasts for 5 battle rounds. A battle round is just a combined turn of both players, and we'll keep track of who scores the victory points, and that will determine the winner. And finally, now that we seem to be out of the tutorial phase of the magazine and onto some more structured, proper missions, we probably won't do sort of best of 3 games anymore. We'll just play the one playthrough and see how it goes, because the games are only going to get larger, and particularly the objective games, they can also take longer to play. But we'll play through it once and then see what we want to do after that, probably. And up here at the top of the back page is those victory point markers they mentioned before. We're just actually going to use a dice to keep track of how many victory points each side has instead, because that's what we prefer to do, but you can cut these out or photocopy them if you prefer. So that sounds like quite a lot of information, but it's actually all very straightforward, so we'll show you how it all works once we've set up the battlefield. There we have mustered our armies, that is to say, got the models out of the box that we require for this game, and read the mission briefing. We just went through that. So now we're on to step 3 in the scout mission pack, create the battlefield. As you can see, we've set up our battle mat and placed an objective marker right in the centre there. Step 4 is deploy armies, and as it said, we deploy one at a time, starting with the Necron player. So I'll deploy a unit, and then the Space Marines will do the same, and we'll show you how that works. Now I have deployed a Necron unit, the Necron warriors, in my deployment zone, so that's within 3 inches of my board edge. I've got the 5 Gauss Reapers up the front and the Flayers behind them. And now it's the Space Marines' turn to deploy a unit.
So I've just deployed my aggressors 3 inches off from my board edge.
So now we go back to the Necrons. And I've deployed the Royal Warden alongside my Necron warriors like that.
Now I'm going to put the Librarian to the side of the aggressors, on the opposite side from the Royal Warden, and also slightly further behind him so he can't get shot at, so he benefits from lookouts there.
And that leaves me finally to deploy the Canoptech Scarabs, and they're out on the right flank of the Necron warriors over there. So we finished that step. You can see all the deployment from above like this. Now we'll be on to step 5, determine the first turn, and because the mission doesn't say anything else, we use what it says in the mission pack, which is that both players roll a dice, and whoever scores higher gets to decide whether they go first or second. So we will do that. I will roll a red dice. I've rolled a 6.
I haven't, I only got a 2.
Having looked at the deployment and done some measuring, I'm going to decide to go second, so the Space Marines will be going first, because they won't be in range to attack me in their first turn. But that brings us to step 6, begin the battle. As I said, the Space Marines will be going first in the first battle round, which is the combined turn of both players. So we'll be on to Space Marines turn 1.
Okay, so in my movement phase, both my units are going to advance. Fortunately, the aggressors only roll a 1, so they're not going to be able to get in range of the objective. And the Librarian rolled a 4, but he's just going to stay in line with the aggressors. And he's just about in range of the Necron warriors for Smite.
Yeah, they're the closest target.
So, Smite, Warp Charge value 5. I got a 6, so it goes off.
Yeah, because I don't have the Canoptech Spider with Gloom Prism in this game.
Yeah, no denies available. So, D3 mortal wounds to the warriors. Or for 3.
And no reanimations, because this is not a shooting or fighting attack that's causing the damage, so they just die. And I think we will lose some Gauss Flayers from the back, essentially because they're not so good against the Toughness 5 aggressors.
That's going to be it for my turn. Nobody in range of the objective, so I don't get any victory points. No morale test needed for the warriors because they only lost 3 models.
Yep, so on to Necron turn 1. And my units have moved up like this. The Scarabs advanced, they only rolled a 1, but that's enough to get 2 of them within 3 inches of the objective. And the Warriors rolled a 6, but I actually moved them up to the Gauss Reapers at the front, are just in range of the aggressors, no need to move any closer. The Royal Warden moved normally, just in behind the Necron Warriors, like so. And then in the shooting phase, the Warriors will shoot first, as they will shoot at the aggressors. So 10 shots with Gauss Reapers, they are assault weapons and they advance, so -1 to hit means we're hitting on 4s. Quite a lot of 3s, so only 3 hits. Wounding aggressors on 4s, which is strength 5. No, nothing at all. And the Royal Warden will shoot at them as well. He is within 15 inches, which is half range, so 4 shots hitting on 3s, 3 hits. 4s to wound as well, also strength 5. Only 1 wound with APs -2.
5+ save for an aggressor? Well, I made it.
No, so nothing at all. Nothing more from me for this turn, but at the end of the turn I do control the objective and it is my turn, so I score a victory point. And rather than victory point tokens or writing it down or anything, we're going to use these large dice to mark that, so the red die is 1 victory point for the Necrons. But that's the end of the battle round, so we'll be on to Space Marines turn 2.
So my turn, both my units are just going to move up normally, the Librarian getting a little bit further ahead. Then in the Stargate phase, the Librarian will try to manifest Smite. 5, getting a 5.
So it goes off.
It will hit the Scarabs for 1 mortal wound.
So this base here that's not on the objective will take a wound.
So in my shooting phase, I'm going to start with the aggressors. They're going to fire their Flamestorm Gauntlet at the warriors. 66 automatic hits, 20 hits, wounding on 4s. And that's 10 wounds, which is perfectly average.
10 4+ armor saves. Made 5, which is also perfectly average. So 5 die before reanimations. So the 2 flayers are dead, and I'll also take away 3 of the Gauss Reapers from the front, and then we get to do reanimation protocols. 5 attempts, needing 5s, but rerolling 1s because they're warriors, so reroll all those 1s. No more successes though, so only 1 warrior coming back. And we will bring it back there to protect the Royal Warden.
And I'll do the Librarian next. He's going to throw a crack grenade at the Scarabs. 1 shot hitting on a 3, he hits. Wounds on a 2.
It's a wound.
Yeah, so strength 6, yeah.
Yeah, toughness 3.
D3 damage.
Yep, no save.
Oh, 1 again.
Okay, so the Scarab base takes another wound. So that Scarab Swarm is down to 2 wounds, and then we're on to the charge phase.
Yeah, the aggressors are going to declare a charge on the warriors and the Scarabs. Anything but really low, well 11. I should have declared the war all. So the aggressors will finish their charge like that. I have to get into range of both units, so this guy has to get in range of the Scarabs. Getting a guy around the end so he can pile into the Royal Warden. Finally the Librarian will charge the Scarabs. And 6 is enough. So the Librarian will charge into the 2 undamaged Scarab Swarms.
So then we're on to the fight phase.
I'll pick the aggressors to go first, so this chap's going to pile in to bring the Royal Warden in. Can't attack him, but the important thing is he can't shoot next turn, and still in coherency with the Sergeant. I think we'll put these 2 on the Warriors, and this guy on the Scarabs. So 7 attacks on the Warriors, hitting on 4s. Oh, we were too greedy, we only got 1 hit. Wounds on a 2, he does, so a Warrior gets squished.
And I'll do his reanimation now, because when he comes back isn't going to matter very much. Oh, he did come back. Well, I'll take away this one, and he's actually going to reanimate over there instead.
Then the other aggressor attacking the Scarabs, 3 attacks on 4s, he got 1 hit as well. Also wounding on a 2, he does.
No save for them, so just 2 damage, which destroys the damaged Scarab Swarm. But it might reanimate if I can roll 4 5 pluses. No.
And the Librarian has piled in. He has 4 attacks with his sword, hitting on 3s, getting 2, wounding on 3s, getting 2.
So it's 2d3 damage.
Wow.
It can't kill a Scarab Swarm with 1 hit, so just do them at once.
It's 5 damage, but that'll kill a swarm.
I'll kill off this one here, and then we'll see if that one reanimates. Needing 4 5s again. No, it didn't. And it is the correct way to do it, because after each unit finishes shooting or fighting, so rather than do both Scarab bases at once, that's how it should happen. So it doesn't really matter, I'll just do the 3 warriors first, obviously all hitting the aggressors. They can't really pile in because they're all in base contact. 3 attacks hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Wounds on a 5, no. And I'll do the Royal Warden straight away because he's also hitting them. He can't pile in, really. He gets 2 hits on 3s. Wounds on 4s because he's strength 5. He gets 1 wound with no AP.
3+ save, failed.
Oh.
But the wound on this aggressor because he's furthest from the objective.
Then the remaining Scarab base on Librarian, which has 4 attacks. Hitting on 4s, 6s automatically wound. Oh, no hits at all. So that's what it looks like at the end of the combat phase. Neither the Necron Warriors nor the Scarabs took enough damage this turn to require a morale test, being leadership 10. And at the end of the turn, the objective is actually contested, one model each, because that aggressor on the end is not within 3 inches of any part of that objective. So Space Marines don't actually score a victory point this turn. So it is still 1 victory point to 0 as we go into Necron's turn 2. There's not much I can do in my turn other than fall back both the Necron warriors and the Royal Warden. The Royal Warden is just enough movement to get with himself within 3 inches of the objective. Unfortunately, the Scarab Swarm though has to stay in melee with the Librarian, because if I don't, then at the end of my charge phase, even though I won't be making any charges, the Librarian could just heroically intervene into the Royal Warden, which would be bad. And as long as the Scarab Swarm survives the combat phase, I will hold the objective at the end of the turn. So we'll see how that goes. No shooting because they all fell back, so straight to the combat phase where the Librarian gets to go first because nobody charged.
We have 4 attacks hitting on 3s with his sword, getting 2 once again. Wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds, 2d3 damage, for 4.
Which is enough to destroy it. So Scarabs are destroyed, and no reanimation because the unit is gone.
So I'm not going to consolidate, because then on my turn I can throw a grenade at you. And we both only have 1 model on the objective, so it's contested.
Yep, so no victory point for the Necrons, and that's the end of their turn. So it's the end of the second battle round. Into the third will be on the Space Marines turn 3.
So in my movement phase, the Librarian has just scooted along a bit to make some space for the aggressors, who have also moved in, staying an inch away from any of the Necrons. And in the psychic phase, the Librarian will try to manifest Smite. He's closest to the Royal Warden, so hopefully it will hit him. So needing a 5. Oh, getting a Perils.
Oh, that's the first time we've had that, so he takes D3 mortal wounds.
Oh, for 3, so he's down to 2.
Yeah, he injures himself and the power doesn't go off either. So unfortunately the Librarian is down to 2 wounds.
So then we're on to the shooting phase. We'll do the Librarian again. He's going to throw a crack grenade at the Royal Warden. One shot hitting on a 3. He hits. Wounding on a 3, constraint 6. He does not. So most of the aggressors have to shoot the warriors. So they're all going to shoot the warriors. 66 automatic hits. 16 hits wounding on 4s. Ooh, 12 wounds.
12 4+ saves. Wow, I've only failed 2.
Yeah.
So there's actually a warrior left, and it means they get to reanimate as well. So I'll take away these 2, and because there's still 1 left, we'll get reanimating. We've re-rolled that 1. Well, none of them came back, so it's just the 1 warrior anyway.
Right, so now we're on to the charge phase, where the aggressors will charge both units. Yeah, they're in. So the aggressors finish their charge. This guy had enough movement to go all the way around the Librarian, and then the Librarian will charge as well. And see, we just squeeze into that gap.
Yeah, no need to roll.
I think the Librarian first. The Librarian has 4 attacks hitting on 3s. Still can't get higher than 2. Wounding on 4s. Got 1.
With minus 3p, so 6 save. Nope.
D3 damage, 2.
The Royal Warden's down to 2.
And then all the aggressors are going to try and crush him to death as well. 10 attacks hitting on 4s. Woof, they got 8 hits. Wounding on 3s. 7 wounds.
I won't even bother rolling that. I need to roll 7 6s to live. There, the Royal Warden is destroyed.
So the wounded aggressor will consolidate into base contact with the Necron warrior, but that's going to be it because the other 3 of my models are in range of the objective.
And then the Necron warrior does get to hit the aggressors for what it's worth. Can't pile in because he's in base contact. 1 attack, it hits on a 3. Or it hits. It wins on a 5. Or it's a wound.
3+. Made it.
Oh. And then that's the end of the turn, where the Space Marines do control the objective. 3 models to 0, so they gain a victory point, which brings it to 1-1, but I'll concede the game here because I have 1 Necron warrior left who can't control the objective. There's absolutely no way I can win this game from this point. So that'll be a Space Marine victory. And since we're no longer doing the tutorial missions, we will call that a Space Marine victory for this issue and leave it there. Also, I don't think playing this again, I think the Necrons are really going to struggle with this game because they're really going to struggle to shift the Space Marines off that objective and they can't get enough firepower in range in the first turn to do that. And then they just get charged, and that will happen probably most times that we try and play this. So I don't think there's anything much to be learned from playing it again anyway. So that'll be a Space Marine victory, and we'll recap the game for you now. So that was the game for issue 24 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine. How do you think that went?
A lot better than I expected. Actually, it did more damage to myself than you did. I think you were fairly unlucky to do no damage with your shooting in the first turn.
Yeah.
Once I got into melee range, I guess it's not too surprising that the aggressors won fairly handily. The issue you have is you don't really have any good melee units, which you sort of need to take. Once I'm on the objective, you can only shoot me off, which takes you time to do. And getting into range with all your warriors, even though you outnumber me a lot, is very dangerous because they can't really do anything in melee.
Yeah, I think getting close to you is just not going to go well because my shooting, it wasn't that effective, but even if it has gone better, you only really need 1 aggressor and the Librarian to completely wreck all these guys in melee. They just can't do any damage in return. Yeah, the Scarab Swarm such don't really have any damage output, especially against aggressors with multiple wounds and things like that. And once again, the short range of the Gauss Reapers lets them down a little bit. I suppose I obviously had the choice. I could have made myself go first and done a bit of long range shooting, but I think you would have been able to advance and use your Flamestorm gauntlets then, so probably wouldn't have gone much better. Probably would have been better for me to go first, actually, in hindsight. But
at least the raw one would have gotten some shots off.
I suppose the tactic I could have tried would be to essentially just stay at the back of the board, let you come to the objective and then shoot you off and then come to the objective later in the game, because then you would have to leave the objective in order to actually attack me in melee, which might not have gone so well. But I think actually with a combination of Smite and the Flamestorm gauntlets, you can still do quite a bit of damage at short range anyway, so still think I would struggle with this mission, even if we had played it more than once.
To be fair, you only need one more victory point than you to win. Like, even if I advance enough, I can get the aggressors in range of the objective and get a free victory point the first turn if I go first. And then, I guess you could leave the Raw Warden behind to try and snipe at people, but again, it's he's helping win the game, but not in a sense because he's not on the objective.
It's almost exactly the same forces as the previous game, just swapping the Raw Warden for the Countertech Spider, but the Countertech Spider is very dangerous in melee and is also much tougher, and it can repair scarabs and things like that, so it doesn't look like much of a change for my army, but it makes a big difference. Obviously, this is the first proper traditional style objective game we've had, in the sense that while we've had objectives before, it's mostly been along the lines of get to the objective to win the game, or get to the objective and then stay there until the end of the game, or stay there for a turn or something like that. Whereas this one with actually scoring points is a more common way of doing things, usually.
Yeah, well, effectively those games were like the end game objective style.
Yes, whereas this one was a progressive objective, absolutely.
Yeah, and objectives aren't necessarily markers. Sometimes it'll be to kill specific models, and usually each faction has secondary objectives that you can take as well. Don't know if those will be included in the magazine, but those are other ways to get victory points.
Yeah, and victory points are usually just a standard way to measure who's winning, essentially, and it can be all sorts of things. And if you were to invent your own mission, you could award victory points for whatever you felt appropriate.
Yeah, and I like that they're doing it as like a mission pack, where it's telling a narrative over the course of several missions. That's quite nice to have it set up like this. And there's certainly tons of mission packs, usually tournament based, or they have these various Warzone books that I think are set up the same way.
And if you own the Warhammer 40,000 core rulebook, you'll find mission packs in there. And having a mission pack as well also means that you can have a group of missions with the same set of rules, means that you can, like in this case, they are designed to tell the story for the Battle for Zephos.
If they have any special rules related to the place that's happening or whatever, they can just put it at the start of the mission pack and say, this rule applies in all of these and stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess with all the text and all the steps, it can seem a bit formal, especially when one of the steps is, for example, start the game. You might think that's kind of obvious, but it can be handy in that it does lead you through step by step, so you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing at each stage, and it really just saying the things that you would be doing anyway.
It's written as if like you'd write a computer program, because as a human you might assume step 8 is end of the battle, then surely begin the battle must come before that, but a computer wouldn't know that, so it's written a bit like that. I guess it's also a way of making it completely idiot-proof.
Yeah, there's no room for ambiguity or interpretation, I suppose. And hopefully you don't feel shortchanged. We only played the game once, but these games will continue to get bigger and bigger, and so at some point we're just going to have to stop doing a best of 3, just because it takes longer to film an idiot, as much as anything else. Since we're out of the sort of hand-holding tutorial phase of the magazine, it seems, we're probably going to have bigger games coming up.
And also, usually with objective games, there's still an incentive to play on an extra turn or two, because you might be able to claw it back.
But that's it. I don't think there's actually much more to say for this issue, so if you enjoyed this video, then leave a like and subscribe. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.